What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
another day at the office, I get to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
What is going on, friends? Welcome into Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, and I want to thank you guys so much for making us a part of your day. We have a stacked show for you. Paul Chivari joins us to break down Boston's World Series win and what it means for the future of both organizations in the Red Sox and Dodgers and baseball moving forward, along with some off-season talk that we got into. A lot of huge news in the NBA. Coaches lose their jobs, new records being broken at the United Center, and of course, another crazy week in the NFL. We got all that and so much more here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airways Network. I'm Mike Mercado. Stay tuned.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the office, I get to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
Let's go ahead and take a look at what happened in Week 8 of the NFL. On Thursday Night Football, it was the Texans beating the Dolphins 42-23. The Eagles beat the Jaguars 24-18. It was the Ravens 21, Carolina 36. The Chiefs all over the Broncos 30-23. It was the Steelers 33, Browns 18, and Hugh Jackson fired from the Cleveland Browns after that from their head coaching position. It was the Seahawks 28, the Lions 14, Bengals 37, Buccaneers 34. Ryan Fitzpatrick back in the game after Jameis Winston is bench after throwing a bunch of interceptions. It was the Jets 10, Bears 24 in a very, very boring game in my opinion, but the Bears get it done and beat a bad team like they're supposed to. And there was some nice things that we saw from there. And Anthony Miller will be a good wide receiver, I can tell you that much. It was Washington 20, Giants 13, Colts 42, Raiders 28, Niners 15, Arizona 18, another team that's in a bunch of musical chairs when it comes to their coaching positions in Arizona. It was the Rams 29, the Packers 27, and Ty Montgomery is now the man of the hour with the most wanted sign, like if you're playing Red Dead Redemption 2, because he went rogue and probably cost the Packers that game, and the Rams now stay undefeated. On Sunday Night Football, it was the Saints 30, the Vikings 20. A very interesting game from Drew Brees because he really didn't have to do too much. And on Monday Night Football, it was the Patriots all over the Bills, 25-6. So going into Chicago, just a little bit about this Bears and Jets game. Why don't we go ahead and just no Khalil Mack. And we saw that the Bears defense was able to go ahead and negate anything. But let's not get it twisted. As good of a game it looks on paper, and a win is a win is a win and is a win in the NFL. I get it. And I'm not going to take that away. And you move in a 4-3 and you change the way, everything looks for the playoffs right now. And from the beginning of that Sunday where you were in last place of the division, by the end of Sunday night, you were in first place. It's pretty interesting how that all worked out. But, Mitch Trubisky going 16 for 29, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, did a lot with his legs. We saw Jordan Howard get 22 carries, finally get into the end zone. Tariq Cohen with a great catch. And this is what we're saying is Matt Nagy knows how to run certain offenses. Now, in the first half, they were very slow-trotting. It was not a good sign to see after what we've seen the last 2 weeks with the Dolphins and the Patriots. But that second half, they put the pedal to the metal, and they definitely knew that they had to put this game away. And there were points to where the Jets were fighting to try to stay in it. It was still pretty close after they traded touchdowns. But the Bears responded. And that's the thing that people have to realize in the NFL. It all comes down to how you respond to a certain situation. Because it's so razor thin. The parity in the NFL is unbelievable right now. And that's what it becomes a difference, is how you react to somebody else's huge play. How you react when you fumble the ball, when you throw an interception, when your defense gives up 7 points. How do you respond to that? One of the best players in the NFL who does it is Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't matter if he's on one knee and his defense is giving up 400 passing yards. He's in that game. He keeps you in that game. Great quarterbacks do that. That is why they get paid all that money. That is why they are the face of the organization for most teams. And I'm not one of these guys that likes to, throw smoke at a lot of these positions, especially the quarterback, because ESPN and the major networks do a good job on that. I get it. But fact remains is that's what you need. And Mitchell Trubisky showed things like that. We've seen certain things about it. My biggest problem is still at this point, they were trying to blame weather about it, that it was a 20 to 30 mile an hour wind. These guys are going to play in worse weather just this season, let alone the rest of their career. He was highly touted as an accurate quarterback, that's what he was. There are times where he's overthrowing Anthony Miller, 10 yards over. And it's not even close. Like, it's not one of those things where he's trying to put it to a place where only the receiver could catch it. He's just flat out missing it. Now, he also corrected a lot of the mistakes where he's not throwing interceptions in the red zone like he did last week and the week before. He's not throwing across the field, but that's the thing is he's very much it seems to me he's much more of an athlete that we were told to begin with. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but he's got a lot of that in him where it's a little reckless. It's a little, dangerous in the sense that he's going to go for it all. And it's great though when you see him maintain in the pocket and be able to feel the pressure, and he doesn't get, jittery legs because he feels phantom linemen coming at him. And that he steps up to make a good throw. And we saw a lot of that against the Jets. And it always comes back to it's against the Jets. But that's what you're supposed to do. And then you better respond next week. You better come out that much better. And it'd be wonderful if you get Khalil Mack back. But I'll be honest with you. With who the Bears are playing, I would not even bother. I think, the Bills on paper, I guess, with Shady McCoy and I guess that's it. You would think they have a better chance because the Jets had nobody going in that game. But why don't we go ahead and take a week 9, speaking of what that Bears-Bills game is going to be. But we'll start on Thursday as the Raiders and the 49ers in a barn burner, guys. That is the game of the year, right? It is Niners and Raiders on Thursday Night Football. Then on Sunday, we start with Falcons and Washington. It is the Lions and Vikings, Steelers and Ravens, Chiefs versus Browns, Jets versus Dolphins, the Bears at the Bills, Buccaneers at Carolina, Chargers versus the Seahawks, Houston versus Denver. It is the LA Rams versus the New Orleans Saints. And on Sunday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers' Green Bay Packers take on Tom Brady's New England Patriots. And on Monday night, we close off week 9 with the Tennessee Titans against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, while the week kind of starts off with a whimper on Thursday Night Football, look at some of these matchups, okay? Obviously, it has to be America's Game of the Week on Fox. I'm just guessing, looking at the schedule, that Rams-Saints is going to be phenomenal. That is literally heavyweight matchup. That is potential NFC Championship matchup. That's implications. That's of playoff seedings. I love that matchup. I love both these teams for an exciting game. Sunday Night Football, New England and Green Bay. Green Bay is not good. The Packers are not a good team. Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, and he's going to keep them in that game for the most part. But New England looks to be finally getting it into full motion. We knew it would happen, and it finally has. So very interested to see that one. Chargers-Seahawks is sneaky good. Sneaky good matchup. I'm glad to see the Chargers back off of the bye week to see what they do. Tampa Bay, Carolina, I'm only interested in that because your boy here has Cam Newton on his fantasy team, and he's going to torch up that Tampa Bay team. And I want to see what happens with, Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston. You have Bears-Bills for all of us here in Chicago. There's no excuse. The Bears should put up 24 to 30-something points and dominate this game. They should dominate this game. We want to see how the Browns respond with the coaching change. How about Steelers-Ravens? A lot of implications there. We'll get into the standings in just a little bit. And, of course, Lions-Vikings in the division. So it's interesting. The Bears set themselves up in a position right now with that win that they must have. Because if they had lost to the Jets, all things are off the table. It's a completely different outlook, guys. And as ugly as a win as it was, it's still, like we said, it's the NFL. Wins are hard to come by. It's cliche, but it's true. Now, the Lions and Vikings have to fight it out. One team has to lose. Well, I guess not anymore. Best case scenario, they go on a tie and it completely throws it. But one team is going to lose and it changes that outlook for the future games. And then the Packers, who are not playing that well of football to begin with, don't have all their guys going. And how bold Aaron Rodgers, as great as he still is, are playing the Patriots in Foxborough. It's a tough one. But I'm really interested to see how that all plays out. Why don't we go ahead and take a quick look in the standings before we get off the gridiron? It is the Patriots at 6-2, leading the AFC East, with the Dolphins at 4-4, the Jets at 3-5, and the Bills at 2-6. In the AFC West, it is the 7-1 Chiefs, the 5-2 Chargers, the 3-5 Broncos, and the 1-6 Oakland Raiders. Interesting to see the Chiefs and Chargers. So that's a really fun division. I want to see how that plays off. Obviously, the Chiefs don't look to be slowing down anytime soon, but my Super Bowl pick in the Chargers are looking pretty decent right now. In the AFC North, another division that's always so tough to predict. It is the 4-2-1 Steelers in first place, the Bengals at 5-3, the Ravens at 4-4, and the Browns at 2-5-1. There are no gimmies in that division. That is the crazy thing about it. Just like the NFC North, there are no gimmies in that division. And in the AFC South, it is the 5-3 Texans in first place. Then we have the drop off of the 3-4 Titans, the 3-5 Colts, and the 3-5 Jaguars. It's so funny. I definitely thought the Jaguars were going to be better. I thought they would take a step back just because if you just looking at history and how it plays off after you've made a playoff run and a few deep ones, that this is kind of how it plays out. But the Texans just quietly right there, and with Deshaun Watson, it seems like it's so polar opposites. There's times where I feel like he is a can't-miss player, and then there's times where I question some of the things he does, but that's what you tend to forget, that they're still young quarterbacks. That they're only in their second year, that him, Mahomes, and Trubisky are babies in this league. So it's interesting to see that. What about the Titans and the Buccaneers, though? The position they're in right now with Mariota and Jameis Winston, are either one of them really the franchise quarterback of that team? I mean, it's so much questions. I think the Colts, if they get healthy, they could make a run. Why don't we go ahead into the NFC? In the East of the NFC, it is Washington at 5-2, the Eagles at 4-4, the Cowboys at 3-4, and the Giants at 1-7. I think at some point the Eagles are going to jump over Washington. They're a better team. They're deeper. They're obviously probably much more worn out, and that's what happens again when you make a deep run. At least they cash in, though. But I don't trust Washington. That's just my thing. I don't trust a Gruden, a Smith, and anybody that has to deal with Washington. In the NFC West, you have the undefeated 8-0 Rams, the Seahawks at 4-3, the Cardinals at 2-6, and the 49ers at 1-7. That Jimmy Garoppolo injury was just devastating. In the NFC South, it is the Saints at 6-1, the Panthers at 5-2, the Falcons at 3-4, and the Bucks at 3-4. Again, not necessarily any gimmies in this division. While yes, Tampa Bay is not a good team, they're going to hang in there, especially if they're still, quote-unquote, Fitzmagic or whatever happens with Jameis. They have talent there, so we'll see how that plays off. I had the Falcons going to the Super Bowl against the Chargers, but it looks like the Saints are going to come out of this division, at least in my opinion, but look out for Carolina. And if Carolina makes a run for a receiver before the trade line comes down as we're recording this episode, we'll see. And why don't we go into the NFC North for all you local fans here? The Chicago Bears at 4-3 are in first place, with the Minnesota Vikings at 4-3-1, the Packers at 3-3-1, and the Lions at 3-4. No gimmies in the division. I was a little surprised at how the Lions what the bet essentially against the Seahawks this past weekend, but you know, I think it's really going to start coming down to a two-team race. You can never count out Aaron Rodgers, so I'm kind of putting an asterisk on this. But it comes down to the two best defenses are on Minnesota and Chicago. Chicago's starting to have some injuries to key players. They've won a game without them, but you've lost Allen Robinson, you've lost Khalil Mack. So two big ones. And now with the Kyle Long injury, there could be some problems right there. You're going to need some guys to step up, so we'll see what they work out in their own right. But interesting stuff in the NFL. As always, I want to know your thoughts. How are your fantasy teams doing? How is your favorite team doing? And now that we're getting close to playoff push, how do you think this thing is going to shake out? Any updated picks for the Super Bowl? Let us know all over social media. I'm on Twitter at mmercado2333. Follow me on Instagram at MikeMercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333, or search Mercado Airwaves Network. Download us anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. Like, rate, review, and share us at Mercado Airwaves. Check out our interviews ad-free and before anybody else with athletes and celebrities at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And of course, a huge thank you to Munch Art Design for powering us here at the Mercado Airwaves Network. We got more on Sports from the Couch here on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing,
How are
buddy?
you, sir? I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
Before we go ahead and talk about Klay Thompson absolutely destroying the Bulls and breaking one of his own teammates' records, why don't we go and talk about a little bit of the news that happened in the NBA. So in Cleveland, after we found out Kevin Love is going to miss some extended time with an injury, Ty Lue fired. And interesting stuff because there was a tweet that went out that J.R. Smith even liked or retweeted, and it had to deal with how big of a drop Cleveland took after LeBron went to the Lakers. But, it's interesting to see how the NBA works in that way. And I keep really harping on it throughout every episode of Sports from the Couch when we talk about the NBA, that a lot of people don't like it for this reason, but it's one of the reasons I love it. The superstars drive the league. It's like there are some great head coaches in the NBA, but there are some guys that are elevated by their players. And I don't think there's been an NBA coach that LeBron hasn't had that he hasn't elevated. It's only natural, right? And when you've lost as many pieces as you have with the Cavaliers, and you weren't able to restock the way you wanted to, and then you have such a sudden, and it's not even sudden, but then you have the departure of one of the greatest players of all time from your organization that brought you an NBA title, there's going to be problems with it. We also hear a report that the Houston Rockets were interested in sending 4 first-round picks to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Jimmy Butler. And you know what? Let's first of all, I think on next week's episode of Sports from the Couch, I'm just going to maybe do my power rankings for the first time, my top 15 players in the NBA. And I can almost guarantee you that Jimmy Butler won't be on there. And this isn't hate on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has earned every cent he's made. He's worked hard. He's literally the definition of a hard-working, try-hard player that elevated his talent and has made his name by the grind that he's been on. I'm not mad at him about that. But this idea that Jimmy Butler's a superstar is crazy. He's a really good defender and a good offensive player. That's it. Mind you, this is in the realm of the NBA, so obviously if he was playing in a rec league, he'd be a god. But in the NBA, he's not top 15. And if you're Houston, you've already messed up that. When you lost Trevor Ariza, you've done the damage already by bringing in Carmelo. Now, I'm not even one of these guys that thinks Carmelo's some weird sports cancer type of. I don't even believe in all that, but I don't think that that's the case. It's just Chris Paul can only get so much older, right? Like James Harden can only do so much, and he's only such a type of player. And this is when you're talking about bringing in Jimmy Butler. I don't get where is that a move that matches what they're doing over in Golden State? It's like you're still not winning a shootout. Like I guess the real question comes down to is they got to a Game 7 without Chris Paul, and with Jimmy Butler, you're a better team, right? Yes, the Rockets are a better team with Jimmy Butler than without. I guess where I'm confused is this idea that Jimmy Butler is the reason why you win a title. Jimmy Butler is a piece that helps win a title, perhaps. You know what? I'll almost guarantee that. But if you're thinking, or if you're an NBA fan, or you're a local Chicagoan who thinks this guy's a superstar, we have different definitions of superstar. You see an all-star? Absolutely. Does he help Houston? Absolutely. Do I think he's worth this weird moniker that some people have about him, that he's a Kawhi Leonard? Like, sorry, he's not Kawhi Leonard. That's always the comparison people want to make. But if you want to see what it is, there it is right there. People want to make him out to be Kawhi Leonard, and he's not. And he's not even a poor man's Kawhi Leonard. He's Jimmy Butler. He's a good NBA player. And I'm not even mad about the contract because that's the way NBA contracts work. He made a lot of money because he's a good player. And people need to fill out the roster in those salary caps. But if we're being just 100% honest about it, I think he's a little overrated in the way people talk about him. It's a hell of a player, though. And when it comes down to the 4 first-round picks, let's also keep this in mind. It's not the NFL. These picks don't mean the same. So, just a little food for thought. I also wanted to take a quick look at the Eastern Conference standings and just some notable records that are going on. Right now, the 76ers at 4-3, the Pacers at 4-3, the Celtics at 4-2. But how about this? The Raptors at 6-1 and the Milwaukee Bucks at 7-0. Really liking what Kawhi Leonard's doing up in Toronto. I really think Toronto's going to be a hard out for a lot of different teams in the Eastern Conference. And here's the thing. I know the Western Conference obviously looks stacked for the simple fact that, the Golden State Warriors play in the West with the 7-1 record and absolutely went off on the Bulls last night. But, there's a lot of good teams in the NBA right now. There's a lot of young talent. And this is what the NBA does great, is that baton being passed, that torch being passed is so seamless because it's a transitional period. It's moved into each other. So the young studs in Utah, like Mitchell or Booker in Phoenix, and it just, there's so many guys that eventually are going to take that spot. They're going to get into that position. Right now, if you're looking at the Trailblazers at 4-2, Dame over in Portland, one of the most underrated players in the league, and Damian Lillard, because nobody watches Portland games. But the NBA is stacked. The Spurs at 4-2, the Pelicans at 4-2. Anthony Davis could be your MVP by the time this is all done. Obviously, what Golden State's doing, it's unreal. But I just wanted to get into it because I always hear people complaining that the NBA is boring, that the NBA isn't fun. I'm like, I don't understand what games you're watching. I don't know what league you're watching. I understand people love history. This is the argument I always come up with. So the 90s are what we call what we should be calling, at least, the golden era of basketball. And we're so close still to it, but we're far enough removed where we're looking at it with rose-tinted glasses. The NBA wasn't perfect in the mid-90s. The NBA wasn't perfect in the 80s. But the NBA does such a good job of marketing its superstars, marketing its history, that we see it that way. And we don't appreciate what we're seeing at the moment. I think finally now people are starting to really get behind, the LeBron movement and really admire what he's done throughout his whole career. But the NBA isn't always like that. Kobe was a villain forever before that happened. Michael was beloved in Chicago and worldwide, but the rest of the NBA hated him. Just ask an Indiana Pacers fan or a Knicks fan. The NBA does a great job of making you think everything was perfect back in the day because the players are larger than life. But there is no better basketball ever played than right now in the NBA as it is at the moment. Period. No, yes, you could say the rules have made it that way, just like the NFL and the quarterbacks. That's like saying the quarterbacks now are better than the quarterbacks back. They are. The athlete is better now. The sport is faster. The sport is smarter now. And these teams have grown with it. I get it. Steph Curry isn't the stereotypical guy you would have saw in the 90s dominating. But fact is, he would have dominated in any era because he knows basketball. He knows how to play. He's got a feel. He's got a touch. And he's one of the greatest shooters we've ever seen. So this idea that the NBA isn't great or it's boring or the players should have more power. The players should have more power in the NFL, in the MLB, although the players union is pretty powerful. Don't side with these owners. And if you've noticed, the NBA owners don't fight back with the NBA players because they're smart. There's a lot of smart money in the NBA. It's a much cooler league. It's a much hipper league. It's a progressive league. So you have to think a little differently than you do in the NFL. And that's just fact. So those are just my kind of thoughts. But I want to go into a little bit of what Klay did last night. Klay Thompson, 14 3-pointers last night. Unbelievable. Look at guys. I mean, finally the score, Golden State wins 149-124. I don't think that really matters. It kind of goes back to everything that I've been saying about this Bulls team from jump. They're an NBA 2K team. They're going to score so many points. Zach LaVine is going to be amongst the top scorers in the NBA. Somebody has to. But look at this. Just think about this for a second. You don't have Chris Dunn. You don't have Bobby Portis, and you don't have Lauri Markkanen. And you're not going to win a lot of games, period. So that's the first thought. But here's my thought process. This is where I go to with this Bulls team and what's going on. So let's say you already know that you're going to be a bottom 3, bottom 4 team in the NBA. You know you got a lot of talent. You know you could win some BS games. You know you're only a game back, even as bad as you've played. You're only a game back of anything that's going on right now. Mind you, very early in the season. But if I'm the Bulls organization right now, and you know that at the end of the season, teams get in trouble for tanking, and you know you did last season as well, and now you have legitimate injuries between Lauri and Chris Dunn and Bobby, right? So with Portis gone, Markkanen gone, Dunn gone, legitimate injuries, why not push him back a little bit more? Think about it for a second. In all honesty, you know they're not winning anything. You know they're not even remotely winning any kind of championship, let alone make the playoffs, anything like that, right? So, okay. If you're the organization and you know you're moving on from Fred Hoiberg, you know it's only a matter of time until you fire him. I think he's going to remain throughout at least the rest of this season, and then they'll get rid of him after that. I'm trying to think whether or not Fred Hoiberg has another year left on his contract, but the Bulls don't. The Jerry Reinsdorf in general doesn't typically pay managers and coaches to not coach or manage, but at the very least, I think he'll finish off this season. And I think they're going to hold off as much as they can. Any of these guys. I think they're going to try to get into the draft again. I think they're going to try to keep restocking this team. And I think they're going to try to go after a free agent next year. But obviously, I think the Jabari Parker experiment has been a nightmare. I don't know what to think about this guy. It's like the talent's there. You want to root for him because he's from Chicago. He was obviously a super stud coming through Simeon into Duke, but it doesn't look like it's there for me. To me, and I could be completely wrong. What do I know, right? But I'm just not feeling this Jabari Parker experiment. I think when campaign has 20 minutes, that's 20 minutes too much. I think this team is just in a bad place right now. And at least, I will say this, though. At least it's not basketball hell. Because they have young players, they have some money, they have a direction, there is places to go, and the NBA is on the verge of changing if Kevin Durant leaves and if Klay leaves and what happens with Golden State. So, but I mean, just really fast with Klay Thompson. I mean, 18 of 29, 14 of 24 from the three-point line. I mean, I believe he had almost, 50-something points in the first half. So, I mean, it was just a dominating performance. But, and then one thing I also wanted to get to in the Western Conference, the Lakers are struggling for wins too, but it's what we've been saying about the Lakers and LeBron. The Lakers and LeBron will be as good as LeBron makes them. He doesn't have anybody on that team. So when you see somebody like Golden State, and people had this illusion that LeBron was going to be able to be Golden State by himself, he still had players over in Cleveland when he won the title. He hasn't won a title without Kyrie and Kevin Love, so it's not like he didn't. He had guys that could match up with them. But at this point, there's nobody in the NBA in the Eastern Conference that will be able to match up. Boston, if they get right, can, because they have the talent. But when you have so much talent, it doesn't just gel overnight. And you didn't have Kyrie playing throughout a lot of the season at the end of it last year. And then you obviously had a huge injury with Gordon Hayward. So, your team is still trying to match together. So, there's no guarantees right now, except for the fact that Golden State is it's a machine right now. Let us know, what do you guys think about the NBA so far? Who do you like to see as an early favorite for the NBA Finals that's not the Golden State Warriors? We want to hear from you guys. We got so much more here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing,
How are
buddy?
you, sir? I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
The Boston Red Sox win the World Series. Vegas gives us our odds on where Bryce Harper and Manny Machado land this offseason. We tackle all this and more with Paul Chivari right now here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. Red Sox finish off the LA Dodgers to claim another World Series after beating LA 5-1. What was a 5-game series, winning 4-1, and it kind of went down the way we all thought it would, but a very entertaining series nonetheless. And to break it down like he's been doing all postseason for us, and for that matter, everything that's MLB, he's always breaking down for us. It's our friend of the show, Paul Chivari, joins us back. Paulie, welcome back to the show, buddy. How you doing?
Oh, thanks for having me once again. Sad to see that the baseball season is over, but kind of happy that we get to wrap it up here on our usual Monday night phone call. So it's been a nice run here watching Boston do what they do, and I think they ended up being the team that I thought they were going to be the whole time.
And obviously for anybody who's missed any past episode of Sports from the Couch with Paul Chivari as our special guest, please check us out in the archives. Paul had some pretty damn good and close predictions. You can check it all over social media on his Twitter at Paul Chivari and whatnot to see what he got right, what he got wrong. But let's kind of wrap this thing up in a bow, buddy. I guess the one thing I want to kind of wrap it up is, what did you think history-wise we learned from this Red Sox team? Do you think this is a team that's going to last forever? Do you think we are fully in the mathematical realm of baseball where it's just guys hitting launch angle and, it's just going to be a rotating door? I mean, think about it. This is now, the fourth straight year that the favorite was not only a sabermetric team, but was the favorite all season. What do you think this means historically after the Red Sox win this World Series?
Well, I think, the game has evolved so much analytically, especially it feels like maybe over the last 20 years it's just exploded with the amount of sabermetrics that exist and how you measure a team's success. But, I mean, there's always going to be variables that are common to baseball from the past that will dictate how this goes as well. You got to be lucky with injuries. The eye test, like you can look at the numbers all you want, but you can just look at a guy like Chris Sale and know that he's an amazing pitcher. You can look at JD Martinez and know that he's just a slugger and he's in his prime. A guy like Mookie Betts is, a 5-tool player and good attitude and puts it all together onto the field. So, I mean, looking at certain guys that you don't need to look at numbers. You could just tell that they're good ball players and they're at good points in their career. But I think this World Series kind of taught us that the Red Sox aren't built on superstars. They're built on a lot of depth. I think from what we learned of this World Series, though, is that, there's a lot of guys that make contributions on that team. No one guy really ran away with that success for Boston. Some guys had down days. Some guys had up days. Steve Pearce was a deserving World Series MVP, but I mean, you could have easily made a case for David Price. You could have made a case for JD Martinez. You could have made a case for Nathan Eovaldi, even though he didn't pitch past Game 3 and had an 0-1 record in the series. What he did in Game 3 was huge, and I think really saved that bullpen. I think Alex Cora made some amazing moves. I think he had a good, firm grasp on what his bullpen looked like, and I like that he wasn't afraid to use a guy like Chris Sale to close out the division series against the Yankees, and then last night in the World Series. I mean, I think it was Sale was originally supposed to start Game 5. He pulls him back, goes with Price, and a lot of people were kind of scratching their heads like, oh, I wonder why Sale's not pitching. And it makes sense. I mean, Price was the hotter pitcher. He's on short rest, but they have an opportunity to, they're playing the house money at that point, being up 3-1 in the series. You can scrap 2 games, but if you have Price and or Sale going in 2 games of the World Series, chances are you're going to win one. I mean, 2 amazing left-handed pitchers and kind of at reversing roles for where they were in the season. Chris Sale, if he didn't miss so much time, would be a prime candidate to win the Cy Young Award this year, but struggled down the stretch. Not in a terrible manner, but just not the Chris Sale that we're used to seeing because of his shoulder injury. And then David Price, who had a good season, not a David Price legendary season, but had that stigma coming into the postseason of not being able to win a game, struggled in his first 2 starts, but then turned it around and was able to have, I think, 3 great starts to finish off his postseason run, including 2 wins in the World Series. Half of those credited pitcher wins in this World Series went to David Price. And, I think between Price and Eovaldi, That really helped spell the bullpen. I think Joe Kelly really stepping up was a big factor. Evaldi coming in relief and then still coming out and basically giving you a start, even though it was 6 innings at the end of that marathon 18-inning game. But yeah, I think a lot of guys did their part, whether it was on a consistent basis or not. Everyone did something on that 25-man roster to help them win that championship.
Who's the biggest winner besides the Boston faithful after this World Series?
The biggest winner?
Yeah.
Like in terms of just anything?
It's funny. Baseball, we were talking about this a few weeks back, that, in the NFL and in the NBA especially, it's all about, have you won the title yet? Mike Trout doesn't get killed for it, or Bryce Harper doesn't get killed for not winning a World Series. But it felt like David Price and Chris Sale had a little bit, and even Clayton Kershaw on the other side, had a little bit of pressure because they needed to win one. And you don't really see that in baseball. So now that the Red Sox, in a 5-game series, have won another World Series, who do you think is the biggest winner?
I think David Price right now is, especially how he had to turn that around in the postseason. After signing that big contract with the Red Sox, I think, two years ago,
right.
3 years ago almost. People at the time were saying that was a ridiculous contract. But we knew the talent was there, even though he didn't really show it at times in his stint with Boston. There were some injury problems. There was a little bit of just being kind of ridden pretty hard by the Boston media, but that's what you get when you're a Red Sox pitcher and you're the money man. So I think that Price was the one I think that won it here, where, no one can take that away from him. He played in a World Series as a rookie, had a different role completely with the Rays, but, here he is as the big boy, the veteran, one of the team leaders, the guy being paid to be the winner, and he came through. And it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't like the team carried him. He did a good job of carrying his team when it mattered most down the stretch. I think in the long run, depending on how Chris Sale's career goes, I think that if it was ever in question that he's a Hall of Famer, this is the thing that's going to help us. Despite the fact he didn't have a huge postseason, he was there at quality times and still was effective. The numbers they aren't flashy, but at the same time, there was a lot of strikeouts and there were some key moments. And I think looking at Sale, the way he kind of closed out those series against the Yankees and Dodgers, it made me recall the times that he was closer with the White Sox back in the early stages of his career. So he definitely has, Chris Sale's a wild card. We know that, personality-wise. We know that he's got incredible stuff on the mound. He's projecting to be a Hall of Famer, but of course, there's still many more years to go in that career to really fully make that case. But he is a champion. He was a contributor on a championship team, and he was a big contributor to why they were successful all season. So, I think right now David Price, in the long run, Chris Sale. And I think on the reverse end of that, who just hurts the most is Clayton Kershaw. I think the way you mentioned those guys, Clayton Kershaw still hasn't won the big one. Clayton Kershaw was 0-2 in the World Series. He, in terms of the team losing, he, despite having some success in the World Series last year, struggled in this year. He didn't pitch a bad game last night. You would want that out of your starter, to at least get you about 7 innings. 4 runs is a little bit too much. It slipped away at the end there, but he really recovered after giving up the 2 runs in the first inning and pitched pretty well. You can't go wrong with Clayton Kershaw. But at the same time, when his career is said and done, I think he's a lock to be a Hall of Famer at this point in his career. But at the same time, I think that stigma will always be around him of, he couldn't pitch well in the playoffs. The greatest of all time, maybe not, because he has this working against him. So, I think that's my initial take on it. As far as position players, I think it might hurt Machado's cause, how he the series that he had, and the way he was kind of making a name for himself negatively. Sure. Although he stepped up at times and showed why he deserves to be the money man. I think the series on the short term and long term definitely had some effects on guys' careers and lives. And it's a good World Series. I think no matter what, it was looking good on paper with some franchises that are big like these two. Finally meeting up, really. They met up, 102 years ago, but none of us were around for it, and that was a completely different situation back then.
Right.
Now that these are such storied franchises, compared to maybe where they were in 1916. It's neat to finally see them come together in a World Series. And despite it only going 5 games, I think they gave us what we expected. I think it was a good series regardless. And I think having that epic 18-inning Game 3 kind of speaks to just how hard Los Angeles had to do to earn a win in that series.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, Mike Mercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing,
Hey,
buddy?
sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on.
Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
And I think as awesome as that game that we had, that Game 3 that went extra innings, I think Game 4 is really the game that everybody will be talking about. It was one of those heavyweight fights where you saw guys throwing heavy landing punches to the body, to the dome, and guys were getting hit, knocked down to the canvas, and both teams came back up. You had legendary moments. Yasiel Puig will forever be in the history books with his home run. There's so many great things that came out of this series. But some things like we talk about are the fallout from this series. And now that we know what legacies have been made, what might have been tarnished, people's jobs are now at stake. Dave Roberts, is he back after what has been an amazing run? All things being equal, look it, this is sports, and I know we hold these teams to different standards, and we expect them to win when you've taken a bite of the apple so many times. But fact remains, how many times have this team been in the NLCS? How many times have they been in the World Series? Yes, you fall short, but consistent winning is something you can't take for granted in any sport. Are the Dodgers about to make a move in which they're going to change their entire coaching staff, which they've already been starting to do a little bit by little bit?
I think short answer is Dave Roberts is back next year as manager of the Dodgers. I think for the sake of consistency, they'll keep him. I think he had to make some tough decisions in that series. And of course, everything is under the microscope in a 7-game series where it's all on the line. I don't think he's a bad manager. I think he's got a lot of growing to do. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of experience and really look at the grand scheme of things. And I think he walked away from both years learning some stuff. But I think when you compare the two managers, Alex Cora and Dave Roberts, Cora, of course, was just clicking. Everything he came up with, every game plan, every in-game decision seemed to go in his favor, whereas Roberts, everything was really heavily scrutinized and everything was questionable. And, I think Cora has the better grasp on where his bullpen is at and what roles those guys could have fulfilled in that 7-game series. I think Roberts kind of failed in a little regard to really understand where his bullpen was at. But at the same time, Roberts had to deal with the fact that, it's not Roberts' fault that Kenley Jansen was not the Kenley Jansen we've seen in years past. It's a little bit limited compared to the resources that Boston had. So I think Roberts is a little bit under the microscope. But, I mean, pulling Walker Buehler in Game 3, Buehler already had 108 pitches. You don't want to stretch the kid that far, and you're going to need him down the road in the series. He did enough to win that ball game for the Dodgers. They just didn't get enough offense until very, very late. And that probably threw off everyone's game plan because you're essentially playing an extra game in that 5-game series. You pretty much played 6 by playing those 2 in one night. But then to have to go 3 games in a row, playing 4 games in 3 days, I think it just took a toll on both teams. And I think the Dodgers took the brunt of it because I think the Red Sox were lucky to have Eovaldi pitch those 6 innings, like I was saying earlier. Yeah, I think Roberts is back, though. I could see why they would pull him. I mean, based on the Dodgers' history, they pulled, they agreed to mutually part ways with Don Mattingly. What was that, like 3 years ago? And Mattingly had, won 3 or 4 consecutive division titles with that team, and that's how it worked out. And then Roberts comes in, little no experience. I want to say he briefly managed the Padres for like a season coming into it. He gets his success as well, and I think that was, his first one was when the Cubs bounced him out, so they just got trunked by a hotter team that year, and then last year comes down to Game 7 of the World Series. They, said he mishandled his bullpen. There's various factors that say that maybe it was his fault, maybe it wasn't his fault, and then there's this year where, they finally outlast the Brewers, but how much of that was maybe the Brewers' game plan kind of ended up gassing them out, Who knows? I mean, you can really look back at it and call all sorts of different storylines to it. It happened because of this, it happened because of that. But, I mean, it's really a combination of a lot of things. And I think Roberts right now is the right leader for this team. But it really all depends at this point, though, where exactly are the Dodgers as a franchise? What moves are they going to make? Are they still in a championship window, or is this kind of a sign that maybe their window is closing on them? Maybe the window is closing on them, and they got enough to try and make one more good run. But you know how that goes sometimes. The team looks really good on paper, but then they just don't show up for the season. So, I don't know. I think having Corey Seager out for the season really hurt the Dodgers. I think it would have been a different series entirely if Seager was on the playoff roster and not Manny Machado. At the same time, though, maybe they also get a guy like Machado. Maybe they get a different guy to kind of fit in there, an outfielder, catcher, who knows? I mean, it's hard to say how the season would have been different if Corey Seager was healthy this far into the season. But I think that's an important factor. I think, Roberts did a really good job of keeping this team good enough to make the playoffs and to be the division winner, considering how their season went. So it'd be sad if he got fired. I mean, but I would understand completely if the Dodgers felt, you know what, you're good but not good enough, we need someone else. But I don't understand how a guy like Roberts, who's had some success in his limited time as manager, would be kind of the one that's called out when, you got a guy like Alex Cora, a rookie manager, winning the World Series. And I don't want to take anything away from Cora, but, how much of it was Alex Cora? And I mean, you saw success out of other first-year managers this year. Aaron Boone inherited a good team, and they improved under him, even though they didn't win the division. Gabe Kapler took a Phillies team that was bouncing back a little bit and took them pretty far. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know managers can affect a season. They can affect a ball club. They definitely can affect a series. And I don't think Dave Roberts, when you factor in how much a manager may or may not influence the team, I think Dave Roberts is still good enough to manage this team. I think for consistency's sake, he belongs with the Dodgers.
And it's going to be interesting to see the fallout and what comes of it, especially when we look into free agency that's coming up in just a little bit. Paul Chivari joining us today on Sports from the Couch here on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado. Follow Paul on Twitter at Paul Chivari. That's PaulChivari, play-by-play guy and analyst for Sports from the Couch here on the Mercado Airwaves Network. Bovada came out with some odds, buddy, as we move forward. The season does not stop even after we crown a champion. And the biggest question is going to be, especially here in the city of Chicago, where does Machado and where does Harper end up? Now, Bovada has come out with some odds, and I'm only going to go through a couple. I'll go through the list. We don't have to dive deep into this because we're going to do a show about, the free agency and winter meetings and all that. But for Bryce Harper right now, where will Bryce Harper play Game 1 of the 2019 MLB season is the Bovada bet. And right now, the Philadelphia Phillies are a favorite by 1-1 odds, followed by the Chicago Cubs at 3-1, Washington at 4-1, and then we drop off to San Francisco Giants, New York Yankees, and the LA Dodgers. And if we jump really fast to Manny Machado, it is the Phillies again with a 3-2 odds this time. along with the LA Dodgers at 9-4, the Yankees at 3-1, the Marlins at 8-1, and the Angels at 9-1. So we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, Paulie, but you mentioned it early with the way Machado's playoffs were. We don't know exactly where his contract's going to go up. We don't know exactly where the Cubs are going to go, if they're going to go focus on rotation or if they're just going to try to add more depth and they're going to try to move some young pieces. But when you hear those odds, not necessarily where do you think he's going to go, but what's the first thing that pops in your mind when you hear these odds for these two players?
I try not to dive too deep into that sort of stuff. It's a little bit more fun when it's, what team will win the World Series next year. As far as where these guys are going, they probably have an idea. My gut tells me Machado's a Cub next year and beyond. As far as Harper, I haven't the slightest. As much as I want to say that Washington being the incumbents of Harper's, location would be the favorite, but at the same time, I think based on the way things have gone with the Nationals, I think he would be a little burnt out on that situation and want to carve a new path in his career. Harper, I don't know. I guess Harper's not the big city guy. Maybe it's. Well, I thought I heard Harper too. Harper on the Yankees, I don't see that happening. Harper on the Red Sox, I don't see that happening. Harper on the Dodgers, I think could be interesting, but I don't see that happening. I want to say Cubs, but I just would find it hard to believe that the Cubs would spend money on both Harper and Machado, and especially with not having Chris Bryant locked down. I don't know. I could see them going all in, but like you said, the Cubs have pitching issues to address, and I think they still have a logjam of positional talent, and there's no guarantee that they can find the right deal to move some of that talent that they said that they might be moving this offseason, or the speculation is, Ian Happ and Kyle Schwarber and those guys might end up on the rosters.
And the White Sox should be in this too, buddy. I keep telling you this. We'll talk about it in the next coming weeks, but there is no reason why the White Sox should not be in the Machado race. I don't know whether they land him or not. I don't care about the way he plays on the field, off the field, his attitude. You want to jumpstart this. You want to make your John Lester hire. You want to put it to your fans that this is it. We're getting ready. Whether we win it in 19, 20, 21, does not matter. This is the first move to be. He's a middle infielder under 28 years old. Like, this is a move that you have to be made. But, Paulie, we're not going to spend all day on this because we don't want to use all the ammunition we have. So we'll move on from it. But at least you and I will be keeping our eye on this. You'll have your finger on the pulse as the weeks go on to the winter meetings and possibly throughout the rest of the free agent pool. And we look forward to it because, you're always great with your time. But you brought it up. I wanted to, before we get you out of here, we do have some odds that came out for the World Series next year. And the favorites, this is per Westgate Superbook. And I will go up until Mrs. Chivari's favorite team. So at 6-1, we have the Astros and the Red Sox. At 7-1, we have the Dodgers and Yankees. At 10-1, I think, which is good betting odds, is the Cubs and the Indians. But what I really like, Braves Brewers at 12-1 odds, and the St. Louis Cardinals at 16-1. We'll break it down a little bit more as the season go off. But when you hear that, and again, you don't have to spend so much time on it because we have so much that we're going to get into throughout the offseason. But coming off of what you saw Boston just do, what do you think when you hear those odds?
I like the Yankees next year. I mean, right now, I like the Yankees. I mean, of course, we got to see how this offseason pans out. And Astros and Red Sox are definitely a logical option to be favorites for next year. But don't forget the Astros were the favorite going into this season when they had out last year when they won it. And they almost had a repeat performance the way they were looking. Pretty much the first series against the Indians and maybe a little bit into that Red Sox series. They looked like a team that was poised to win it again, but I don't know. I mean, you can only buy so much into these odds, and I think it's better when you can find a sleeper team and maybe get instead of for the championship, you go for winning the pennant or winning the division, that sort of thing. Yeah. That's where a good sleeper team would come in because, I mean, look how close the Brewers hit to being a pennant winner this year.
How about the Rockies at 30-1?
I don't know. I think the Rockies are going to dismantle themselves a little bit here.
All right, I'll give you one right here, depending on their free agency. The Phillies, 18-1.
I like it.
That's not bad, right? That's not bad.
Yeah. They need some stuff cracking at the end of their bullpen, closer. They need they need a little bit more. I think sometimes they're a little bit too, too much three outcome type of stuff, with home runs, low batting average, strikeouts, that sort of thing. But they have a good core over there, with Duval Herrera, Reese Hoskins, those guys, having Joe Gary to lead that pitching staff. Yeah, I like the Phillies. I mean, I think they really could have won the division this year, but it's just the Braves just outlasted them was all. But I mean, swap out the Braves for the Phillies, I think it would have been the same outcome with the Dodgers beating them. And I think the Braves and Phillies kind of showed that they're at that stage now, post-rebuild, or in the midst of their rebuild, where it's they're ready to add pieces and consider themselves yearly contenders now that they've got their core. But obviously both of those teams need a little bit to add to consistently be a winner. But yeah, my early instinct is the Yankees win it next year. Okay. I think the Boston just got hot this year. The Yankees have injuries. I think the Yankees maybe round out with 4 players, get some of those younger guys to get another season under their belt. You'll have a whole season of Gleyber Torres next year. So, it's going to be another fun race watching the Red Sox and the Yankees battle next year. But my instinct tells me go for that 7-1 of the Yankees. I think that'd be a good bet right now.
And we'll obviously keep it honest. The lines change at free agency hits, manager changes, and whatnot. But we're always having fun here on Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves when Paul Chivari joins us. And we got so much more left in the tank, even though a World Series champion has been crowned. The season never ends, and that's why Paul will be with us next week as we break down everything that is moving forward in the MLB offseason, including the faithful Cubs and White Sox. Follow Paul on Twitter at Paul Chivari, play-by-play guy, baseball analyst, and expert. Paulie, we have ourselves a champion, but there's no rest for the wicked. We got stuff we got to do next week. You're the best, brother. Thank you for joining us again, man.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Looking forward to looking at the offseason with you.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing,
How
buddy?
you, sir? I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
That'll do it for us, friends, on this episode of Sports from the Couch. We want to send a big thank you to Paul Chivari for joining us on this episode. And, of course, a big thank you to each and every one of you for joining us. It means the world to us. Without you, this isn't possible. You can follow me anywhere in the universe. I'm on Twitter at mmercado2333. I'm on Instagram at MikeMercado2333. We're on YouTube. Subscribe to us at youtube.com/MikeMercado2333 or search Mercado Airwaves Network. Download us anywhere you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. Like, rate, review, and share us. It really helps us out. You can get our interviews ad-free and before anybody else with athletes and celebrities. Just go to patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. A huge thank you to Munch Art Design for powering the network. You can check out all their awesome work on Facebook at Munch Art Design. And of course, like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Enjoy all the games. We'll see you on the next episode of Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
It's another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing,
How
buddy?
you, sir? I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on.
Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.